I'd like to welcome everybody to the 5,565th meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago. Rotary One is now in session. So, as some of you may know, if you've read your emails from Rotary International, this is World Immunization Week. So as Rotarians, you're so used to hearing about our polio successes that it's probably become almost background noise. But it's worth restating a few facts. Because of our work with our Global Polio Eradication Initiative partners to vaccinate children against polio, 19 million people who would otherwise have been paralyzed by polio can walk today. So since 1988, we, Rotary, have helped reduce worldwide polio cases by more than 99.9%. It's also worth internalizing the success of our vaccination efforts in light of COVID-19. Later in the show, you'll hear about an opportunity to support vaccination efforts here in Chicago. I also think this is particularly critical in recent weeks with the news in India, where folks are suffering now from COVID, and even one of our own members has lost a relative, and where we need to do whatever possible to ramp up vaccination efforts there. And if you haven't yet, please consider contributing to the Rotary Foundation so that we can end polio and help people everywhere stay healthy. And that's something you'll hear a little more about later from Marga about how you can contribute to the annual campaign. So let's move on to our program today. So Jim Derwinski was named CEO and Executive Director of Metra in August 2017. In fact, shortly after I started my role at Chicago Union Station working for Amtrak. Jim oversees an agency with a $1 billion capital and operating budget. He's uniquely suited to understand the various facets of running a railroad with his background. And what is his background? Sorry, I just realized that I forgot a very vital portion of our meeting. My apologies. I forgot to do the thought for the day. I was getting so excited about Jim speaking that I forgot Evan's portion of the meeting, which is the first time I've done that all year. So my apologies, Jim, and my apologies, Evan, but I do need to give Evan a moment to give us the thought for the day, which will no doubt set us up for the show here. So Evan, the floor is yours, and my apologies.
Yeah, the world has lots of communities. Family is our first community, then neighborhood and school communities. We live in local and national communities and work with others to maintain a political climate that provides safety and personal growth for everyone. There are occupational and professional communities. Rotarians are creators of worldwide community. In a radio interview in 1945, Paul Harris said, "Well, Mr. Childs, despite the conflicts, the hunger and hardships facing many countries today, I am an incurable optimist in thinking about this old world of ours. Our hope for the future is that Rotarians will continue to be ambassadors of goodwill to all races, to persons of all religious faiths, and to members of all political parties, that Rotarians will continue to be purveyors of tolerance, forbearance, helpfulness, kindliness, neighborliness, and friendliness, and that through our worldwide Rotary Fellowship, we will ultimately achieve our goal of international understanding, goodwill, and peace." But in today's world, with TV and the internet, we're exposed to human suffering as well as the accomplishments of people everywhere, whether we momentarily choose to recognize them or not. Most people are loyal members of their national community with whom they share governmental institutions. But we're part of a world community of all human beings whose health and well-being affects us all. I'm a world federalist who believes that peace with justice is what the world community needs. I am a Rotarian.
Thank you very much, Evan. And that was very much worth coming back for. So I really appreciate those thoughts. And I think, of course, very consistent with Rotary's four-way test in how we should function in our everyday lives and how we should bring folks together for peace and goodwill. So thank you very much for that. Let's try this one more time. After 10 months, I guess I've just about got everything down here. 2 months left to get it all right, I guess. As I was saying, Mr. Derwinski is uniquely suited to be CEO and executive director of Metra because of his understanding of the various facets of running a railroad with his background, which I'm going to tell you about now. So Mr. Derwinski began his railroad career as a locomotive electrician with the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad in 1993, and some of you remember that name. He joined Metra as an electrician in 1997 and steadily rose through the ranks, serving as a foreman, general foreman, shop superintendent, director of systems maintenance, locomotive superintendent, Rock Island division director, and Milwaukee division director, and then senior director of mechanical operations. He was named Chief Mechanical Officer in September 2013, and in that capacity, he was in charge of Metra's in-house rail car and locomotive rehab programs, a contract for locomotive remanufacturing, and the installation of positive train control on cab cars and engines. Oh, and by the way, he was also an electrician on nuclear submarines for 6 years for the U.S. Navy. And with that, I would like to hand the Zoom stage over to Jim Derwinski. Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eric, for that introduction. Really appreciate that. And as I take you through a presentation today, I think it's going to be exciting because it kind of touches on a little bit where we've been, where we want to go. And I think that's what a lot of us are looking forward to right now is what does that future really hold for us? So I'm going to share the screen and then kick this thing in gear. All right. So like I titled this Commuting with Confidence, I'll talk a little bit about what that means and why it's there, and also talk about what My Metra means. But riding through the pandemic and laying tracks to a healthier future is really something I think we've been really concentrating on here at Metra, especially in 2021, as we've seen so many great signs that there's some light proverbially at the end of the tunnel. So a little over a year ago, and I have to cast ourselves back to some of the things we were dealing with. We were dealing with 5 years of a decline in ridership, 5 solid years of a decline in ridership. And when we were doing that, we were clearly looking at what are the things that we can and can't control. We were trying to research what passengers want in their commute. We actually went to other agencies, and we certainly were running surveys time and time again, trying to figure out what is this new ridership pattern? Why are we seeing a decline in ridership, and what does that mean? And as we get into the pandemic, you'll obviously see, and you all know what that really means is some of the things as work patterns have changed. We also wanted to know what's important to our passengers, and once again, what could we control in that? So we came up with something called My Metra, and it started here in our building, bringing in all the leadership and all the forward-facing communications people in all the various different departments and trying to get an understanding of what passengers were saying, what were they asking for, what were their complaints, what were their concerns, what were their compliments. And so as we sat in the room, we kind of went around the room and started looking at all the different things that kind of come into what we called clarity workshops. And eventually it kind of bubbled up to, we really want to take a look at what are we good at and what are the things that we can do better at and what are the things we should be improved on. So the week of COVID, everybody remembers where you were in 9/11, the week of COVID, when everything collapsed around the region, we saw ridership go from about a 90% down to 25% within 1 week, and then farther from there. We were actually in stations. We were actually in stations with iPads in front of passengers, asking them to look at these 6 different sayings on there and what connects with them, because it couldn't just connect with us, it had to connect with passengers. And My Metra won out. So what is My Metra? Well, it's everything that stands at the center of what we believe in. It's both an initiative and an attitude. It's both a belief and a philosophy, and it gives rise to our mission. once again, organically, we came up with this internally, but then we had to bounce that off. So it wasn't just a little saying in the little picture that you saw over there. It was really about a concept, what resonates. And so my Metra was kind of born in March of 2020. We now use this as our North Star. My Metra's motto is about taking personal responsibility for our riders and for each other. I can't say enough of how important this is. We look out for each other and we look out for our riders. And these pictures you see on here are Metra employees. You'll see a lot more of them in a second. So for our customers, we thought it was really two things. It was a promise. It was twofold. It's our commitment to take them safely to the places and people that they love the most. But secondly, the fact that My Metra really belongs to all of us. And to think about that, we talk about My Metra and Metra as a whole. We're the actual operator of this great state asset. 1983, we became a state asset when tax dollars started coming into the region and supporting our operations along with CT and PACE. And My Metra and Metra itself really affects people that don't ride the train as much as it affects people that ride the train as a service. Businesses we know thrive around our stations. We know that housing prices typically bump 10 to 15% within walking distance of our station. So we really affect the community in many different ways, including the reduction of congestion and emissions, and a lot of other things that we talk about in this current day and age that benefit the community. So once again, building confidence with a team, we wanted to use only our employees. And this is more the internal piece, the internal communication piece, as we started messaging, what is My Metra? So you had two things going on at once. We're messaging My Metra and this change of philosophy and discussion piece internally about how we all support each other's and our riders. And you had COVID going on. So it was challenging, to say the least, to launch a very positive campaign that we know is going to benefit the region during the midst of all the uncertainty that COVID had. So the pandemic hit, Illinois enacted shelter in place, our ridership dropped 90%. On our worst day, we were down 97.2% of our pre-COVID ridership. We actually, by then, had already reduced our schedules down to what we call an alternate schedule. So at that point in time, we had to pivot our 2020 plans and continue moving with My Metra, but really start addressing the current needs. So we started conducting more research. What do our current riders need? That's that 10% ridership we had when they felt they might return. And we've been planning for this return ever since the pandemic started. So this is back from May of 2020. So this is a little over, just under a year ago. Most people thought last May they were going to be called back in August. 72% thought they would be riding Metra within a few weeks of that callback. 2/3 said they were going to return to public transportation. 1/3 said, no, I'm going to try to find another way. 30% of respondents claim they will ride Metra less, which kind of goes to the bullet above that. Physical distancing at that point in time, last May, was very important. On-train hand sanitizers were very important. And 16% of riders who did not use our app claimed they were going to download it for that touchless experience. So this is, if you think about, here we are almost a year later, a lot of this still rings true except for some of the timeline. So we went out and we had masks we were handing out at our stations, hand sanitizer, and we were starting to message on the trains what we did. And I'll talk a little bit about that right here. So we created this thing called the Commute with Confidence campaign. It was on September 15th last year. We invited news media out. We had 31 press members show up, either live or virtual. And if you think about where we sit again today, it's sometimes hard to believe we actually had back in September all these people live inside one of our facilities demonstrating how we were making the train commute with confidence, that we had done everything we needed to do, and we wanted to message that to our riders. So some of the things we were talking about at that point in time, I'll talk about in a second, but I wanted to touch the next event that we actually, once again, went farther, was this March 11th, we had a business about a safe return to work summit. Once again, on property. We had about 1,000 people, C-suite leaders, HR executives inside the city interested in about what does that look like, what does a safe return to work look like? You can see in the pictures here, Dr. Robert Murphy from Northwestern was there. They were one of our great sponsors, along with William Blair Wind Trust, Crane Chicago Business, and BMO and BOMA. And so it was a great event. You can actually still go on safereturntowork.com and you can see that. We hosted it at our facility. And once again, we continued a conversation because we did run into that big bump. All of us as society ran into that big bump with the COVID numbers going in the wrong direction, basically from October till about January. So with this, we've been twice out there really working on making sure that people understand what has Metra done. This particular event focused also on what has the business owners and the building owners done, and a little bit about the science. That's why we had Dr. Robert Murphy there. It was an interesting event if anybody wants to go back and take a look at it. So what we're re-messaging, both at the first event and the second event, and we continue to message on social media and many different avenues, we message what we're doing every day. Hand sanitizers on the train, fogging of the trains, using the MERV 13 air filters, and we've cleaned the heck out of these trains. The compliments that came in saying these cars look brand new, that's because we finally had the ability and time, dedicate the resources to actually cleaning these things to a deep clean level. And now we've built programs in place as we start bringing cars back in service to maintain the cars in that order. This is just a picture of a commercial we ran for many, many months. I once in a while see Beth back on. She's one of our conductors on the Southwest service line, but she did one talking about Commute with Confidence. We've done many radio ads. This weekend alone, I probably heard our radio ads about 4 or 5 times. We've also done PSAs talking about what public transportation's done throughout this pandemic to make sure people can use our system with confidence. And we certainly used a lot of the tools available to us. These are the stickers and decals that are plastered throughout our stations. Inside our train cars, about 50,000 pieces of content were put out there. We developed a new magazine, which replaced, if anybody was one of our former riders, we used to have something called On the Bi-Level. It was like a monthly newsletter. We've actually replaced it now with the My Metra magazine, and it's quarterly, it's in color, it's a totally different type of document. Some of the same content's there, but the first one, of course, really concentrated on what is Metra doing about commuting with confidence. We message this as well. This is a very important piece that's been understood now in science. The fact that not only do you have to have signage everywhere, you actually have to have airflow everywhere. And so on our train cars, by nature of design, we circulate the airflow into each car every 4 minutes or 15 times an hour. When you open and close those doors to let people in and out, that number is even greatly enhanced. That number far exceeds CDC guidelines with respect to sitting in an airplane, any type of closed environment with regard to air circulation and any type of airborne virus. So this was another important piece of messaging that we wanted to make sure people understood. More recently, our board actually approved us to put ionization and UV light inside our air conditioning systems on our cars. We're going to pilot 50 cars here shortly and take a look at, is that the best technology moving forward, or is that something right now at an interim spot? You can see a lot about that happening inside businesses. And once again, at our stations, we changed schedules, but we wanted to message the best we could so people could make clear and conscious decisions on the safe return to their workplace. Another place we started messaging that Metra hasn't done a lot of this was the digital billboards. And we put those up, of course, at where they belong, at the pinch points, because we know people have choices. And when they come back to work and they're sitting in their car and they're at one of those nice pinch points on where our expressways meet and they're either going in or going out, that's where our billboards right now are talking about all the things we've done using our employees about commuting with confidence. So we did hire a marketing firm to really help us develop My Metra, but we had to pivot with them as well to really switch it to right now about regaining ridership. And looking at our future, all the things we need to do. We've had to get feedback from our customers. This you can get on our website. A lot of our customers, and this is back in about September timeframe. You can see some people wearing masks, not wearing masks. They're really talking about how do they feel on the trains. Their stories are available. And this is actually where we're going to go with our next part of the campaign, is really, again, starting to talk about our passengers. So with this, we always like to measure best we can. Sometimes it's very hard to measure what you can't see. We have 10% of the people on the train. We have 90% of the people off train. Those numbers have been growing. But we took a look at May of 20, and we saw that if you take a look at the 9 to 10 on the far left side, that was people saying, I feel extremely comfortable with Metra. So 7, 8, 9, 10, those are the predominance of people. 13% of people, May of 20, as this pandemic was developing, said, hey, I'm pretty confident with Metra. And there was certainly a lot of uncertainty on the backside, a lot of messaging that was going on. So as we continued to message and we had our events in September, we looked at it again and said, what is our message doing with our riders? And the next survey really shows now that almost 50% of the people now have shifted into the pretty confident realm. And once again, this February, prior to our March event, we did another survey, and you can see even stronger numbers moving into that. And I think society is seeing a lot of that. The more we know about the virus, the more we know about the effects of the virus and the way people can get through this pandemic, the more confident they get. We are very similar to the airline industry when you really think about the makeup of what we're doing. So in the beginning, when we started putting our message strategy together, after we pivoted, it was really about recovery. It was about starting to really look and understand how long is that recovery going to take. And what we've really determined is that recovery is just now about over. And I don't mean over as in the riders are back. Now it's about return. And so we're moving toward return. We're starting to move toward another messaging campaign as it's safe for our riders and passengers to come back to work. And I'm not fooled by anything to say that we're not going to see our traditional passengers for a while. We're not going to see 5-day-a-week riders on a normal basis. We know our monthly tickets are down. We know that passengers are going to be coming downtown 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 days a week. It all depends how their commute is with those pinch points and how parking is. They'll make decisions. And those decisions we're certainly right now targeting to make them understand that we still provide that same value. We still provide that same ability to relax on the train, de-stress, maybe get some work done, even take a nap. So what's our future look like? Beyond COVID, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. It looks like new coaches. So in January, very happily, our board approved the purchase of 200 new coaches. Alsom's the company that got the contract. You can see this conceptual design here. They don't look like the current coaches. Rather than stepping up almost 50 some inches, these you step up one step and you're into the coach. These are what's actually called a multi-level coach. So there's a lower level where you step in. There's another middle level, which is above the 2 trucks on the end. You can see those end windows. And then there's an upper level. And all of it's open and airy. It's a totally design that a lot of other commuter agencies across the country use. Inside this design, we're incorporating all the latest and greatest in technology, not just from the Wi-Fi, but all the enhancements that passengers want with regard to the connectivity pieces, ADA concerns, the large windows, using the UV light for air filtration, crash worthiness standards that far exceed our current cars. Once again, we're really happy. The board did approve us on the contract and allowed us to go ahead and move forward with a base order of 200 cars. Those are right now targeted to replace 400 of our oldest cars, the youngest of which is 1980, the oldest of which still today in service, running at 79 miles an hour out there, is 1953. The benefits of the cars are the crashworthiness, the ADA accessibility, emergency access is much better. They now have propulsion inhibit systems incorporated in regulation, and they have a lot of enhanced security features. So we're looking forward to those coming. It's going to be about 36 months. One of the other things we've really been targeting and talking about is zero emissions vehicles. So we've had 2 press releases we put out at the last 2 board meetings. One was for zero emissions switch engines to replace some of our oldest engines, including 1939 engines that are still operating here. And more recently, the board approved an RFP process that should go out within a week, targeting the replacement of the diesel inside our current locomotives. So we're going to pilot kits that would take those diesels out and put solar batteries in as the only form of propulsion. And so we're really excited to see what the industry can do to come up with that. And hopefully, several months from now, we'll be taking something to the board. We're adjusting to our new ridership patterns. We're starting to talk about different type of ridership patterns. And we're hopefully later this summer going to be announcing some service patterns that we've been listening to our customers that are a little bit different than our current schedule and slightly different again from the pre-pandemic type scheduling. We're expanding Create type projects. So if you're familiar with Create at all, it's a partnership between all the freight railroads in this massive rail network we have, where we're decongesting the freight and passenger components. And we've been working on this for numerous years. The biggest project going on right now is called the 75th Street SIP, where 7 different railroads all meet basically at an intersection, and only one can go through really at a time unless you're on parallel tracks. And this is going to have one set of trains fly over the other 3 sets. And then this one actually has partnership from 14 regional partners, because it actually decongests 71st Street on the south side as well. So it creates a great project. With the capital program coming from the governor's office in June of 19, stations are something we're really concentrating on. So we've got Auburn Park. We've done some announcements on that. We're really trying to get that thing out to a point where it's out for bid design. Peterson Ridge is very close to having a groundbreaking. We're working on 147th there on the Metro Electric, and 59th and 60. That's going to be tied to the Obama Library down there in Jackson Park. And all of these other stations we're working on. So without that capital funding coming from the state, we wouldn't have the ability to advance these projects. As you can see, there's a lot of things moving. I won't even get into all the bridges we have to work on. And what does Metra look like? What does the ridership patterns look like? The truth of the matter is no one knows. And I like to say this a lot. Everybody that guessed last year what they thought pandemic was going to look like, they were all wrong. We were all wrong. I was all wrong. And anybody that says anything today most likely is going to be wrong, because the variables in front of us are so far out of our control of when businesses say, hey, come on back to the office. How many days you're coming back to the office? When is that in person going to happen? And by the way, are you a Metro rider? Not a Metro rider? We do know that there's a huge market shift right now of people that have moved to the suburbs. And so for us, that looks like to be brand new customers to be talking to, potential customers. Currently, the industry is planning and they're adjusting, and they don't know. And I think hopefully with the vaccinations going out and our numbers staying in check, the leaders of industry and the leaders of business down here can make more solidified plans as we move into June through September. We have seen a steady growth pattern since the second week of January. Here's a news flash. It's not huge news but today we believe we're going to pop 30,000 trips for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. It's been a slow rise since the beginning of the year, which was actually about 20,000. But that kind of gives you an idea. We were at 280,000 during the peak in 2019. We did launch, amongst all this, in January, Fair Transit South Cook. It's a pilot that reduces the fares on Metro Electric and the Rock Island District to really try to help that region use transit in a better way. And so far, we've seen slight growth over there. But once again, industry and businesses are, I think, mostly driving our ridership patterns. But this pilot's a 3-year pilot with Cook County, and PACE is also involved. We have heard that more express trains and frequency of service are certainly things that passengers want. So those are the things not only as our peers in the industry have heard from passengers, but certainly our passengers in the region. And we continue to send out surveys and make sure that we're listening to the commute. With that, I'll kind of conclude. I know I just threw a lot at you, and I look forward to any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. That was a great presentation, and I think a really good overview of where you guys are at and where you're heading, at least as you say, as much as you can kind of predict at this point, which is very unpredictable. We've had a lot of good questions coming in the chat box while you were talking. So let's start with questions that are focused on some of the COVID-related procedures, because we have a few questions there. The first is about the spacing, the 6-foot spacing. How are you going to deal with maintaining that, or will you maintain that as the trains do start to fill up again?
Yeah, so right now our policy is 1 person per seat, and then upstairs every other seat. And the hard part about this is the conductor is obviously not on every single car, and it can't even be on both ends of the same car even when he's there. So we have been listening to passengers, and what we've been doing is we put out on our website something you can go look at, and it's green, yellow, orange, and red. Red would mean this train's really crowded. We don't have any of those right now. And what people can do is to help make decisions. They can go to the website and they can look at last week's ridership numbers to see what that particular train that they might be targeting as a choice of their commute. They can see, is it in the green? If you're in the green, you've got plenty of ample room in there. If it starts moving up even toward orange, what we've been able to do is just add cars to those trains. And certainly at some point in time, we're going to be faced with adding more trains. So since the beginning of January, about once a month, we've been targeting trains on lines during mostly the rush hour periods that really hopefully expand that availability so that we never have social distancing concerns. I often say until we see people shoulder to shoulder at sporting events, we probably won't be back to shoulder in the trains. So society will kind of tell us when that's going to happen. But in the interim, we've been really just trying to put more trains back out there kind of slowly. More recently, the biggest ones we put out there, we call those our construction worker specials. They really leave out from the outer points about 4:30 in the morning, and they target to be down here by 6. Those trains were taken off during the beginning of the pandemic. We just weren't seeing the ridership there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And another one of our viewers today basically was saying that she's very impressed with all the procedures that you're doing to keep the trains sanitized and comply with CDC regulations. And as we know, these procedures are helping not just with COVID, but they're reducing flu and colds and a lot of other things. And so she's curious, how many of these things do you plan to keep when the pandemic is over as just standard operating procedure?
I would say right now, all of them. Unless we find through any science that some of this stuff is ill-effective, it makes sense continuing to do this. And we've kind of incorporated through this pandemic, we actually rebuilt our cleaning procedures. And right now, those cleaning procedures are being ramped up. We're going to have a little bit of a hiring event here very shortly to start ramping up some more positions to meet the demand of putting more cars and trains back onto the schedule. But right now, I don't see us getting away from those cleaning procedures unless for some reason science tells us that you're wasting time and money.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Any plan to take temperatures?
No. There's been conversations about that, and truthfully, it's been even a struggle just doing it with general employees coming in and out of buildings because there's so many different variables, and you can just picture this. You got the temperature sensor at the door, the conductor's 3 cars away. Are we moving this train or not? If someone ran to the train with a temperature. So we've done a lot of that. What can we control and what can't we control? And the biggest thing, and I think this still falls to the rider, the biggest thing that everybody can do right now is just wear your mask and stay away, get your inoculation. And temperatures have not been something we consider just because we're like, what do we do if we have a hot temperature?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Couple of capital project related questions, and this one I can relate to a little bit, having used this station my fair share of times. Any plans for Clybourne Station?
Yeah, so Clybourne's tied to Lincoln Yards project. That's obviously something that the city's looking at right now. We meet with the Lincoln Yards developer on a normal basis. If this thing moves into the next stages, and to be clear, Metra does not own the Clybourne Station. That's owned by Union Pacific Railroad. Metra owns none of the land around the Clybourne Station. That's either Union Pacific or the developer. But our last meeting with the developer really was indicating that we're very close to moving forward the next thing. So the station itself physically is going to move south. And then the tie where the station is will connect the 606 to a transit center right below the current station. And I'm not sure about the timing of when that's going to start, but I do know that project's pretty big because it's going to involve track expansions, and probably just on the track and station side will be at least 3 years.
Well, that's wonderful, because I think that station has seen a lot of growth over the last decade, and probably a lot more once Lincoln Yards is in place.
Yeah.
Another capital question. How much can you tell us about Metra's position on the One Central Transit Hub?
Yeah, so the One Central Transit Hub does come up a lot. Metra's name gets thrown around there a lot. Our position is fairly consistent, which is this. We absolutely want to make sure that line, which is the Metra Electric line, and the yard that's physically underneath where they want to build this mega project is called 18th Street MU Shop. Our position has been, it can't cost us any money. Anything that happens on the development site has to be an improvement. It cannot impact our ability to grow, and it cannot impact our ability to operate. So those 4 key components are how we have conversations with One Central. Truthfully, if you're looking at kind of the broad-based thing of it, that's a 1926 yard with 1911 rail in it. It's pretty hard not to improve it just by looking at site reallocation of some of the stuff. I'm excited about it, but once again, I'm not the sponsor of it. There's so many different partners on that particular project. Metra is a key component, obviously, because of where the footprint sits with regard to our yard.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I've got a question of my own here, and I want to sort of build off of what you started to talk about a little bit with the Metra electric pilot in conjunction with Cook County. And I want to sort of look at that from a little bit higher level. When we think of some of the most successful transit systems in the world, I think the key word is system, right? There's sort of a regional approach, and it's all about moving somebody from A to B and is somewhat agnostic as to sort of who the operator is, not just on the transit side, but these days in more modern times, right? You can throw rideshare in there, you can throw bike share, there's so many different modes. And so I wonder how you view kind of the next steps or overcoming hurdles to regionalism and a more sort of system approach here in Chicago. And I think particularly in light of this Metra electric pilot and what that's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more that that's what customers are looking for right now. So as we went into the pilot, we clearly were working with the county, and we clearly were working with PACE. And the pilot really, if you break it down, has 3 basic elements that their study said this would help. Number 1 was the fare reduction. How far that fare reduction is, that's maybe to be determined. Right now, it's almost 50% of what it was before. But they felt that was a clear impediment to some use of that system or some of the decline of ridership in that system along with the Rock Island. The second piece of this was fare integration. Absolutely what you're talking about. It's not just transit agency to transit agency. Eventually, it could be that TNC, it could be that water taxi, and it could be even, that divvy bike or whoever's running that system right now. That's what I think people are leaning toward. And you hear about it all the time in Hong Kong and Taiwan. And this is the way you get a card, and that card gets you around everywhere. So the key in this is partnerships. And I think Metra really clearly demonstrated our partnership. We were willing to jump into this, get that partnership with PACE. I'm not going to speak to where the city's at on this for various reasons. The city is not there yet. But the final element of all this, once you have that fare integration and people are really starting to utilize the system a little bit better for that reason, hey, I just don't want to pay twice. Now you start looking at expansion of service. And that's when you start looking at the true infrastructure and doing things called transit hubs. So here's another little precursor for you. It's not on the street yet, but we are working with PACE on what we call the Harvey Transportation Center. PACE has got some money to redo their lot there at Harvey, and we decided to jump in and work. And this was even before the Fair Transit South Cook pilot. We really started looking at, we should start building where we can transit centers to make it easy for passengers to move between modes. And then this Fair Transit South Cook came along, and it really goes together with what we're trying to do there at Harvey.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And thank you very much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time. I think it was a very informative presentation. I know I can speak from experience that our members are always very interested in what you're doing over at Metra. Obviously, many of our members are Metra riders. So as a small token of our appreciation for you being with us here today, we have a little gift we're going to send you in the mail. It's a candle. And we always try to, with everything that we're doing, we try to support our community with the goal of affecting lasting change in Chicago. And these candles are the same story. All proceeds from these candles support Bright Endeavors and their mission to empower young moms by providing transitional jobs and professional skills training. So that's obviously not just helping those moms, it's helping to support their kids and ultimately our community. So we'll get one of those in the mail to you right away.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I mean, you've heard the term before, we're all in it together, and that means having conversations together. So I always cherish these opportunities to speak with groups right now. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jim. Very good. Well, we're going to move on to the next element of our program here. We have another exciting announcement, which is the induction of a couple of new members. And to do that, I'm going to pass the floor over to our membership chair, Laura Inns. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. Today we have the pleasure of inducting Patrick Burns. Many of you may recognize Patrick because he's a repeat. He's rejoining the fold here. So with that, sorry, I'm just getting my screen situated here. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the Board of Directors and members of the Rotary Club of Chicago to welcome you as a member of Rotary One. We welcome you not only for the fine fellowship that we will share, but also for your talents, abilities, and enthusiasm that will help us carry out our many projects to make our community, our country, and the world a better place in which to live. Rotary is not a political organization, but all Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship and the election of good men and women to public office. Rotary is not a charitable organization, yet its activities exemplify the charity and the sacrifices that one should expect from people who believe they have a responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, but it is built on those eternal principles that have served as the moral compass for people throughout the ages. Now, Rotary is an organization of business and professional people pledged to upholding the highest professional standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and international peace can be achieved when business people unite under the banner of service. Patrick, you have been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Chicago because your fellow Rotarians believe you to be a leader in your profession and because you manifest the intelligence and commitment of heart that fit you to interpret and impart the message of Rotary. You are a representative of your profession in this club, and any information of an educational value pertaining to your profession must naturally come to us through you. At the same time, you are an ambassador from us to your profession, and we rely upon you to carry the principles and ideals of service, which we inspire to those who share your professional activity. The community will know and judge Rotary by your embodiment of it in character and service. We accept you as a member because we know our principles and organization will be safe in your keeping. Now, we also expect you to give us the inspiration that will help us to become better Rotarians. It is with this hope that we welcome you to the Rotary Club of Chicago. Now, we will be sending you a pin at some point in time. I'm not sure when exactly, but at this time, I would like Patrick, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the club.
Thank you, Laura. I think I'm unmuted.
There you are.
Okay. First of all, it's really an honor to be a member of Rotary again, and I will do everything I can to live up to your hopes and your expectations. I enjoyed Rotary very much when I was a member before, which was quite a while ago now, and I'm very happy to be back. I came back for Two things stood out for me in my previous experience with Rotary. One was Job One. I went to one of the meetings that you have, I'm sure, still with candidates for Job One, and I was really impressed that at the inclusion of so many young people in that program. That we pay a lot of attention, in my view, to people who ace the SAT and they've got straight A's, and that's wonderful. But there's a much broader group out there, and Rotary One serves that group very well, and I think that's just wonderful. I also had an experience previously. I heard a story about a Rotary in another country. At that time, the Middle East was kind of warmed up about something, and I don't remember what it was, but there's a Rotary club in, I think, Israel and with the Palestinians. They had a program going that involved Israeli people and Palestinians. Whatever the cause of the heat at that time was, my reaction would have been, I think we'll just postpone whatever we're doing. We'll get around to it, but not now. And that group did not do that. They moved forward with a really positive program, and I was very impressed with that. So with that, I thank you again for allowing me to be a member of Rotary One. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Welcome to the club. Eric, with that, we will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you very much, Pat. Welcome to the team. Glad to have you. Okay. We're going to be doing our introduction of guests next, and that doesn't include you anymore, Pat, because you're now a member. You're not a guest anymore. So as I go through and I call your name, just introduce yourself. Tell us what you do, and if you are a Rotarian, tell us what club you're part of. So I'm going to start with our old friend, Adekunle. Adekunle, please introduce yourself to the group.
The opportunity president, Rotarians and guests, my name is Adekunle Adebayo, past president, Rotary Club of Ota, District 910, Nigeria. I really enjoyed the presentation from the Metra Chief, and I benefited greatly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adekunle. Good to see you again.
You're welcome.
Another old friend is back with us here today, Randy Pote. Randy, please introduce yourself.
Mr. President, it's always my joy. Randy Pote, past district governor, 15-16, and presently a member of the Las Vegas One WON, where Opportunity Networks Rotary Club.
Very good. Thank you so much, Randy. Always good to see you. Let's see, our next guest, another old friend, and I will let you introduce yourself this time. I know you passed on this the last few times. Salvador, please introduce yourself. Oh, he's got no mic. Or if you do have a mic, Salvador, please feel free to say hi.
Hi, I had just finished typing that it wasn't necessary for me to introduce myself, but I appreciate the offer. And yeah, thank you for welcoming me again, and for the great speakers that you have. I mean, that's why I keep coming time and time again. So nice to see you again.
Yep, good to see you too, Salvador. Suzanne, you're up. Please introduce yourself to the group.
All right, thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. I'm Suzanne Mosier. I work for Amtrak as a senior program manager at Chicago Union Station, and my good friend Eric Kempel is a former colleague of mine, and I appreciate being invited to today's presentation, particularly relevant as Metra is our primary tenant at Chicago Union Station. So great presentation, and thanks again for having me.
Thanks so much for being on, Suzanne. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, let's see what other guests we have on here today. Irv, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Well, at every Chicago Rotary Club meeting, my adult education continues. And so does my friendships and my fellowships. So greetings to everyone. I'm just happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irv. Always good to see you. Another old friend, a lot of old friends on here today. Liz Goggins, please introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liz Goggins. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of St. Croix Mid-Isle. And as Eric, you know, a couple of times I've stolen your guest speakers, and we've had them here. And I just want to let you know that Ibrahim and Wally took part in our entrepreneurship seminar with high school students. The teachers and students loved them, and we had a meeting with them last night. And it looks like we'll be working on a project here in the VI with those guys, which is wonderful.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really good news. I will. I'll have to send them a note just to thank them for stepping up in the world of Rotary. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Okay. Well, we'll see you next week then, Liz. Let's see here. We have past District Governor Ricardo Loretta. Ricardo, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning. Where I am, it's in 2 hours before you in Palm Desert, California, near Palm Springs. I'm very impressed by the way you run the meeting, Eric, and very happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for joining, and feel free to come back and visit us anytime.
Thank you.
Sure. And we have another old guest coming back to join us again, Ronnie Korn from Sydney, Australia. Ronnie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, or I could say good morning from here. It's 4 o'clock in the morning now. It's a 4-hour ride for me from where I live, just outside of Canberra, into the Rotary Club of Sydney. Most of our meetings are still done as hybrid meetings or just Zoom only. We celebrate our 100th year of receiving our charter on this coming Saturday, as in the 1st of May. So for us, a very significant date. And otherwise, I'm retired. I'm almost going to have my second vaccination, plus our flu vax, because we are in winter. So I'm looking in mid-July of getting out and starting to do things. And I realized for Chicago, you also, for some of you, are the same. So we're in it together, and we'll be better together.
Wonderful. Well said, and glad to hear that you got that second vaccine coming up. So good to see you again, Ronnie, and hope to see you again soon, post-vaccination. And then we have one more guest here on my list, Subayama Nagubadi. Could you please introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very good program. I run a nonprofit organization called Vinod Nagubadi Corporation, and I am from Valparaiso Rotary Club. We have exciting program, Eric. I want to join. We have a cross-cultural experience. We study one country each month, and we study the culture, women, men, important people in that, and we cook food. And if we have clothes, if we can find somewhere, we wear them. So we really immerse ourselves. That's one thing. Venugopal, president of Guntur, Andhra Pradesh, India, was going to join us today. He joined yesterday at our meeting, Valparaiso meeting. He was going to join, but he said he had a COVID emergency. So it was really bad, and it's still bad. So I hope Rotary can do something, we can do,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We last week, actually on Thursday, we planned to have a meeting of the first 5 Rotary clubs in the world, which for those who don't know, it's Chicago, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, and LA. And our guest was President-elect Rotary International, President-elect Shekhar Mehta. And and he canceled at the last minute, and we later found out it was because he and I believe his entire family have COVID. So it really is an issue right now in India. So I agree with the need to focus on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. No, thank you. Thanks for joining. And did I miss any guests with us today? Okay, not hearing any. I would like to give a shout out to some of our guests who are watching us on Facebook Live right now. I understand we have visitors from Italy, Pakistan, Chile, Uganda, and India. So hello to everybody out there watching on Facebook Live. Okay, so we have a lot of great announcements here today about what our members have been doing and what we would like to ask you to do. So first, I'd like to thank our volunteers over the last week or so, folks who have stepped up for the Job One job training that our new member, Pat Burns, was talking about how great of a program that is. It is in full swing right now. Joel Tim, Lisa Russ, Nick Latimer with Rotaract, and many others stepping up to help with the Job One training of our class of students and job seekers this year. The Grant Park cleanup, which took place on April 24th. That was in honor of Earth Day, and that was a district-wide event. I'd like to thank our new member, Shada Calderwood, as well as new member Bruno, both who helped volunteer for that event. And if I'm missing anybody else, my apologies. Do let me know later if you did attend that. There was also, as part of our great Rotary Reading Room initiative, where we read books to young folks in schools throughout the city, we had one in Spanish last week. So thank you to Gunnar Subieta, Jody Santaford, and friend of Rotary, Lori Jervianka. So thank you very much for stepping up to do that and to do it in Spanish. That's awesome. I know that normally we do our Meals for Seniors every Friday. We pressed pause on that for a few weeks. We'll be back again on May 7th, delivering meals as usual every Friday to 70 low-income seniors and sharing a little bit of sunshine in an otherwise dark time for those seniors. If you didn't get enough of cleaning up trash on April 24th, as I know Shada mentioned that her son wanted more of that, your answer is here. We have on May 23rd, Rotary One will be doing a kayak river cleanup. We've reserved tandem kayaks so that experienced and novice kayakers can be paired together. Kayaking experience is not necessary. Rotary One will provide lunch, so that's even better. Chicago Kayak will provide gloves and bags. If you want to bring other stuff like a net or something, you can certainly bring that yourself. We're going to have a registration deadline of May 14th. We haven't actually put the registration up yet, as far as I know. But when that's up, we'll make sure that everybody knows about it. And I think it's going to fill up fast because a lot of people said that they're very interested in that. And I know members of other clubs in the region have said the same. So come out for a little bit of physical activity, a little bit of sunshine. Hopefully May 23rd is nice. And obviously doing some good work here in Chicago. We talked about the need for vaccination earlier at the top of the meeting. Well, Sinai Chicago is coordinating a pop-up clinic on Saturday, May 8th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and from 12 to 4 p.m. at St. Agnes Church. The information on this can be found in our Gyrator newsletter, and you can sign up to help with logistics, registration, sanitation of stations, and so forth. The link is also in the chat box right now. Certainly would love to see our members step up a bit for that. There's also a Greater Chicago Food Repository food drive that the Community Service Committee has contributed to, purchasing 3,000 meals through that. You can also add additional meals to that at the link that's going to be provided in the chat box. You can also contribute to the food drive by encouraging your building or your office to collect for the food drive. And finally, as part of this, Alita Williams is assembling, and we'll get more information on this later, but is assembling a volunteer opportunity to prepare and distribute food as part of this effort. And then how do we pay for all of these good things, and how do we vaccinate kids for polio? Well, we do that through the annual campaign, raising money for two foundations. Marga, would you like to give us an update on how that's going this year?
Of course. Thank you, Eric. I'm delighted to do so. And yes, we, as you know, it is our foundations that enable us through grants to pursue the many projects we have both locally and internationally. So we're getting close to our goal. For the Rotary One Foundation, we are short $15,843 out of the $60,000 goal. And for the Rotary International Foundation, we need just $3,625. So I encourage you, those who have contributed, maybe you can add a little bit more. Those who haven't, I really, really ask you to be a part of it. We would like to have reached the goal of every Rotarian every year. So if you can put $20, $25, $30 or $15, that is fantastic, because it would be, this foundation belongs to all of us, the Rotary One Foundation. And what I would like to tell you is that the funds we receive from the Rotary International Foundation, we get them back in matching amounts of money for the amounts of money that we raise. But you will be glad to know that the portion that the Rotary Foundation contributes to our global grants, which are the international projects, sometimes it is 40 or 50% of the funds that we raise. So this is really, really big, and we need you to be a part of it, as well as the Rotary One Foundation, because all those funds that we raise together for the Rotary One Foundation are split among the different committees, essentially the Community Services Committee that does local work and the International Services Committee that does international work. So again, help us reach to that goal so we all can be proud of what we're accomplishing together. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Marga. And I'd also like to give a shout out, not just to the folks here, the members of our club who have contributed, which obviously we greatly appreciate, but also to our guests who have contributed even today, as well as over the last 10 months or so, joining our meetings. We really appreciate that, and that really does help us continue to provide great service here in Chicago and globally. And speaking of which, one of those great programs that benefits from contributions to the Rotary One Foundation is Job One. And partially because of the great work that our Job One committee has done, and then also partially because of the situation with the pandemic and the seriousness of that, we have a record number of student intern applications. So what does that mean? It means we need more jobs to provide jobs for our high school students, paid jobs at $15 an hour in the city of Chicago. So if your company might be able to hire an intern, or if you know somebody who might be able to hire an intern, or if you're willing to contribute, like Kay Fleischer and Timo Reebok did to help the nonprofit Pause hire an intern by sharing the cost, we would greatly benefit, and our students here in Chicago would greatly benefit. Really, at $15 an hour at a minimum of 20 hours a week, that's $2,400 to make a huge impact, and frankly, get a huge amount of benefit for your own company, because these are screened and trained interns. So I've never had an employer be disappointed in the quality service that they got by hiring an intern. There are several events coming up from different organizations. First, I want to draw your attention to the district conference, which is virtual this year. That's June 3rd through the 5th. The first 300 to register for the conference are going to get a pretty swanky swag bag. So I encourage you to sign up, and there's no cost to attend. I think it's a great and fun way to get to know other folks in the district, and also get to learn a little more about what's going on and where your monies go to when you're contributing across the district as money comes back from Rotary International. Another great program is the Rotary Peace Fellowship. That application is now available. If it's something you're interested in, you can apply for that. It's a fully funded fellowship which provides peace and development leaders with the knowledge, skills, and networks they need to advance their peace building careers. That application is due on May 15th. It's on the calendar. It's in the gyrator. And I think the link is going to be in the chat box as well, if that is something that you're interested in and you can learn more information. Feel free to reach out if you want to learn more. I talked about the district convention. There's also the larger Rotary International Convention this year. It was supposed to be in Taipei, once again canceled due to the pandemic for the in-person element, but now it will be virtual instead. And I know Marga attended that last year, so if you have any questions about how the virtual convention works, you can certainly reach out to Marga and she'll tell you all about that. But this year it goes from June 12th through the 16th. There is a minimal registration fee, but do encourage you to register as quickly as possible because the fee goes up a little bit later. But it is a great event. Marga, would you say that it was pretty good, the virtual convention?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I think they reached 50,000 people who attended the convention at different times. So it was a record-breaking number. Of course, in Taiwan, they didn't have a whole lot of interest having about 45,000 Rotarians descend on Taipei because they've had only 9 people who passed away of COVID. And I think less than 10,000 people infected in Taiwan. So it's they're okay staying within their borders. So we will reach out to them through Zoom. So yes, do come. And also I encourage you to participate of the district conference. You will get a better idea that we're part of something bigger than our club. And also this is not going to take you the whole day, but there are going to be raffles, some fun things going on. So so be a part of it. I really encourage you so you get to know a little bit more about Rotary. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Marga. We have a couple of our partners that we've grown connected to over the last few years who have some events coming up as well. So if these are things you're interested in, you may want to check them out. First is from the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center. They have an event called Help Shine a Light on Child Abuse on May 12th from 7 to 8 p.m. It's a free event that does have a raffle attached to it. So hear more about what those folks are doing, the good work at the Children's Advocacy Center. Our old friends at the Illinois Medical District Guest House, also having a golf outing on May 19th at Seven Bridges Golf Club in Woodridge. They will be following CDC guidelines to deal with health concerns, and tee time to start as early as 8 a.m. We've often supported the IMD Guest House in the past. And we've also been growing a relationship with the Edward G. Irvin Foundation, which is part of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. And they do tremendous work helping underserved kids in Chicago. A lot of synergies with what Rotary One is doing. So it's really no surprise that we've started to develop that partnership. They're going to be soon starting a popcorn drive to support their scholarships. So that's something that will be coming soon. We have our own meetings coming up, committee meetings and board meetings as always. Board meeting on May 4th, community service on May 6th, PR marketing on May 20th, international service to be determined, I believe. So I encourage all folks, new members in particular, to get engaged and see where the real action happens at Rotary One and how we determine what projects to support and so forth. So please be part of that. We can always use help in those committees. I know there's been a lot of questions about in-person meetings. At the moment, our in-person fellowship opportunities are the Friday roundtables at the Union League Club. And I know that all folks who have gone to those have really been enjoying them. We've been getting a lot of folks showing up. Just come on by to the Union League Club sometime between 12 and 12:30. There'll be a table there reserved for Rotary One, and just grab your own lunch. It's a great opportunity for fellowship outside of our normal meeting format where you just get to hear me drone on for an hour, 10 minutes. We have some great meetings coming up as well, some great speakers. Obviously, today you all enjoyed the Metra CEO, Jim Derwinski. May 4th, we have Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Note that is an evening meeting. So make sure that's in your calendar appropriately. We expect a large crowd for that. Then May 11th, continuing our local government theme, we have Gia Biaggi, Commissioner for the Chicago Department of Transportation. So now we're at the point in our program where it's time to say the four-way test. And Ronnie, since I see you're still on and you're one of our international guests all the way from the other side of the planet, if you don't mind, would you please read the four-way test, which is about to be shown up on the screen here momentarily. There we go.
Thank you. The four-way test are the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much, Ronnie. That's great. Always good to see you and everybody else on today. And with that, meeting adjourned.